Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Elevating Your Campaigns with Next Gen Marketing Cloud. I'm Christina Anderson, marketing strategist here at Circante, and your beginning MC for today's session. Just a few housekeeping items before we kick things off and hand it over to the experts. Go ahead and find the chat, say hi where you're joining us from today, and then go ahead and feel free to use that throughout today's session. If you have a thought, a reaction, a question that you want to share, you can put it there. You can also put your questions in the Q&A. In fact, we encourage you to do so just for your questions because that'll make it easier for us to keep track of everyone's questions as we go throughout the presentation and then be able to share answers to them at the end. I also want to encourage you to already go ahead and look at the poll. You'll see it in the chat there. Our poll for today is, where are you at with your Next Gen Marketing Cloud journey? Go ahead and look at that and submit your answer. But other than that, remember to use the chat throughout and submit your questions in the Q&A. And sit back and enjoy and get ready to learn from Erin and Heather. Erin, I'll leave it up to you to take it away.
Yeah, hey everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to go through Next Gen Marketing Cloud and especially building campaigns in it with all its AI capabilities. But before we get started, if you want to go to the speaker slide, we'll do quick intros. So I am the Account Engagement Product Director here at Circante. I'm also lead our Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced practice. But I've been in the Salesforce world for about 15 years now, and I just really nerd out on knowing all the technical nitty gritty so I can do stuff like this.
And I'm Heather Rinke. I focus on our Salesforce core and Agentforce practice areas. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem working with Salesforce for about 13 years. And I'm excited to help and support and talk to you or help demonstrate some of the features with Marketing Cloud.
Awesome. All right, so our agenda today, we will talk about what is Next Gen Marketing Cloud, because I know there's a lot of different names floating around. We'll level set on some terms because I never want to assume everyone knows what a unified individual is, what a flow is, all of that. And then we will go into building a campaign. So I'll show you all of the steps to build a campaign. And then we can talk about some additional resources. So first things first, what is Next Gen Marketing Cloud? As I said, it has multiple names. Most commonly, you may know it as Growth and Advanced Edition. It is its own Marketing Cloud platform. So we've got Account Engagement, and now Growth and Advanced. A lot of people are referring to it as Marketing Cloud Encore because it is built on the Salesforce core platform, but Salesforce recently just kind of revised it and renamed it Next Gen Marketing Cloud because that's truly what it is. It is the next generation of Marketing Cloud. But I put all of the most common names here because you may see these throughout different blog posts, different materials, all of that, and it all means the same thing. Now, on the next slide, this is not the prettiest graphic, but I do feel like it gets the point across because I've gotten a lot of questions of, is Next Gen Marketing Cloud and Marketing Cloud Next the same thing? And the answer is no. Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced Edition is the next generation of Marketing Cloud. Marketing Cloud Next is an umbrella term for all of the next generation tools. So if you are using Marketing Intelligence, Salesforce Personalization, Loyalty, Growth and Advanced Edition, that is all under the Marketing Cloud Next umbrella. Now, if you have Account Engagement and you're also using Growth and Advanced, that is being called Account Engagement Plus. Same with Engagement. If you're using Engagement as well as Growth and Advanced, it's either Marketing Cloud Plus or Engagement Plus. I've seen both, and I'm trying to determine which is correct. But this is all to say what you should get out of this is Marketing Cloud Next is an umbrella term. Next Gen Marketing Cloud is Growth and Advanced Edition. So let's talk a little bit about, why Salesforce created this new platform. Why was a third platform needed? So back in 2009, 2010, Salesforce, ExactTarget, and Pardot were three separate companies with three separate pieces of tech. ExactTarget purchased Pardot, and then shortly thereafter, Salesforce purchased ExactTarget. So over the years, Salesforce has pulled these tools more on platform, integrated them with other Salesforce tools, made them look and feel like Salesforce tools. So ExactTarget became Marketing Cloud Engagement, and Pardot became Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. And Heather, if you can go to the next slide. But the problem still exists that they all started with a different foundation. So no matter how often or how much Salesforce works to integrate engagement and account engagement with the Salesforce core platform, the more you scale these tools, the more the foundation becomes a problem. So what we're doing now is we are taking everything that we love from account engagement and everything we love from engagement and building it on the Salesforce platform. Or as I like to think of it, on the next slide, we've got Captain Planet. Let our powers combine and we can build something much bigger than we can on our own. So the vision of this new platform, this new unified marketing platform or marketing application, the goal here is to have one trusted platform. So everything is working from the same foundation. Everything is in one place. Your users are not switching between 5 different tools, learning 5 different user interfaces and 5 different ways of doing things to get the job done. They have one tool that they go to for everything, and all of the data is there. That is a big piece of this. You don't have bits and pieces of your data scattered throughout multiple tools. You have all of your data in one platform. Now, with everything being in one platform, especially all of your data, your AI can be much better because your AI is seeing the full picture. If your AI is only seeing your marketing data, but not your sales or your services data, it's only getting a piece of the pie, and its generations and predictions and all of that is only going to be as good as the data it can see. So it will allow you to do much more with AI. And then, as marketers, we can tend to be really good at personalizing the journey as people come into the system and they qualify up and they get handed over to sales as leads, or even as they go through the lead process until they become an opportunity. But once they become an established customer, a lot of the times that personalization just falls off a cliff because marketers are not touching them anymore, or not as much. So with all of your data and all of your AI in one place, that personalization can really go much further. You can personalize everything across their whole life cycle journey. So as they become a customer, as they come back to renew, or they purchase an upsell or a cross-sell, your customers are going to get a better experience with this unified platform. All right, so let's talk about some features in Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced. Now, this is just some highlights. It's not comprehensive, but these are, I guess I would say, my favorite features, so I always like to talk about them. But AI is ingrained throughout the platform. We have content generation, segmentation, segment creation. Agentforce can be used to help you create campaigns, and we will go over that in the demo. But there's also methods to make sure your audience is getting the right message at the right time. So send time optimization, engagement frequency, and engagement scoring. The tool also comes with people and account scoring, forms, landing pages, and email builders, and they are drag and drop. You can do really cool things with your brand guidelines. You can set a standard and then have it auto apply to your marketing assets. And then SMS, WhatsApp, and email channels are native out of the box. And the automation engine for everything in Growth and Advanced is Salesforce Flow. But I will show you a lot of these things in our demo. So we will get to that momentarily. All right, before we get into the demo, let's level set on some terms, just so no one gets lost. Unified individual. This is one of the things I'm finding causes a little bit of initial confusion for marketers. So how I like to explain this is, you may have Rachel Rodriguez in your Salesforce CRM as a lead or a contact, in your marketing system, in your customer service system, in your commerce system. You can have her basically copied throughout multiple different tools. And what we run into a lot is that those systems don't talk to each other, or they don't overwrite each other. So each system will have its own set of information, and that set of information can be complete or not. It can conflict. So personalizing based off that information can become a problem because you don't know what is the best information. So Data Cloud takes all of those Rachel Rodriguez's and unifies them into one unified individual. So in the next slide, we can see what Data Cloud would do with all of the Rachel Rodriguez's. It creates one unified individual with all of the information. You still have those records in your separate system. It's not taking that away from you, but it gives you a unified individual that your marketing system will work from. All right. Next slide is flow. That's something we'll talk about a lot. Now, I know Salesforce flow to a lot of people means back-end admin tasks, automating processes, doing screen flows to guide users through processes or tasks, running Apex code, getting very technical, very fancy. This is the same flow as Salesforce flow, but it is kind of geared towards marketers. The options change a little bit. You can't get in the marketing flow and do everything that you can in a back-end Salesforce flow. So if you are an admin, do not worry about governance. You're not going to have a big governance mess on your hand. But this flow is used as the automation engine in Growth in Advance. So sending emails, automating where form fills go, automating your processes, qualifying leads to send them to sales, all of that is going to be done in Flow. Now, if you're new to Flow, I promise if you can build journeys or engagement studio programs, you can build a Salesforce Flow. So don't worry. Also, there are a lot of blog posts out there on how to build flows for certain purposes. There are training things, there are trailheads. So I have never met someone who is not able to learn Flow. All right, so I think we can get into our prompt and then we will start going into our demo. But first, let's talk about prompts because that's what we need to kick off our campaign. So our prompt is what we are going to tell Agentforce to do to help us build our campaign. And if you're newer to prompts, I always want to cover the basics of how to craft a good prompt. You want to make sure you are specific. You have a conversational tone. So you want to write to Agentforce just like you would write or you would tell someone else, a request or a task. Try not to use jargon or abbreviations. I know at Salesforce, we love our abbreviations, but Agentforce is not going to know what they mean. And so it may give you incorrect results. And then you want to set parameters, specify inclusions, exclusions, define your audience, all of that good stuff. So in the next slide, I have my prompt for today. I just used promoting this webinar as my inspiration for the prompt. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an email campaign for this webinar. We want to tell our audience what they're going to see. And we're going to tell Agentforce when the webinar is and who we want to invite. So I have all that information there. All right, so now let's get in the system and start building. So this is our homepage. We are using an SDO org today, so I don't have everything set up, just what I need to demo. But here is where you would go and see, what flows are active, what flows were recently scheduled. It's just kind of your checklist of everything that's going on in your org. But we are going to start here to prompt Agentforce. So Heather is going to click the little Agentforce icon in the top. Now we can tell it, create a campaign or create a brief, or you can just put a prompt just straight in there. So this is our prompt about our webinar today, and just go ahead and give that to Agentforce. I'm going to make this window a little bit bigger for me. All right. So what Agentforce is going to do now is it's going to take this prompt and write us a campaign brief. So campaign brief is everything your team that is working on this campaign would want to refer back to. It keeps everyone on the same page. And so it's going to have your key message, your target audience, your description, all of that. So it has generated us a brief. We can give Agentforce feedback so it can learn and grow based on our feedback. We can also cancel if we want to revise the brief, but we are just going to do confirm here. And now Agentforce is going to say, would you like a campaign to go with that brief? And we can say, yes, please. And now it will generate some campaign content. So an email subject, an email body, a title for the campaign, all the stuff we need to get started. And again, we can revise, thumbs up, thumbs down. We are just going to confirm it today. So now it's going to create us a campaign, and then we will go in and start building on that campaign. All right, so we've got our campaign here. And Heather, if you want to just go ahead and dive into that campaign. All right. So in Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced, everything revolves around the campaign. You're not having to go and create a campaign and then go to another area to create your email and then tie that to the campaign and then go another place for reporting. Everything is here. So it has dropped us right into the email, but I did want to show you the brief tab. So the brief that was generated for us is here attached to the campaign. We can also add additional information or a brand. I'm going to show you how the brand applies later, so I'm not going to do it yet. On the details tab, you'll see your campaign layout that you're used to seeing with campaigns. So that's all there too. We don't have related assets or campaign members in here, but if we did, you could see them on the tabs. But let's go to our Elevate with AI webinar flow, and we will start looking at our email. All right, so let me get all of my tabs over here. Okay, so first thing we want to do is build the email. So we can go ahead and select Edit here. And this is going to open the drag and drop builder. Now, with the summer release, this did get HTML editing capabilities. Right now, if you switch an email to HTML and you want to edit it that way, you can't go back to drag and drop. So you really got to choose your experience and stick with it. However, I don't control the roadmap, safe harbor, all of that, but I feel like this is just a stepping stone to having more HTML and drag and drop capabilities side by side. But right now you do have to pick one. All right, so we have our email in here. We've got our components on the left-hand side. Let's give our attendees a button to register for our webinar. So we can just drag that in to our canvas. And then over on the right-hand side, this is our properties panel. So we can change that to register now. And link that so we can configure an action, and you've got a couple options here under your button action. So Heather is copying our URL, but we got dynamic link, Salesforce CMS, or URL. We're just going to have it go to our website because this is a demo. It's easier to just put in there. So we have that for our button, and then we can go back and put a little margin around it just so it doesn't look so squished. You'll have the style tab here, and then you can edit your colors, your layout, your borders, all of that stuff. So let's add a little bit of a margin so that gives it some space around the button. All right, the next thing I want to do is revise my paragraph. So we're going to select our paragraph and select the Einstein sparkles there. Anytime you want to use Agentforce or Einstein in your email, you can select the sparkles. And so what's happening now is it is revising the paragraph. Once it gets done, it will provide us with further revision options. We can do cool things like revise it based off the key message, change the length, change the tone. Let's go ahead and change this to a casual tone, and we'll have it rewrite it again. And then we can auto apply it to our email once it is done. And if I had already applied a brand to this email, I can set a tone in my brand, and then Agentforce would auto write in that brand, but you can still revise it as needed. All right, so we've got a new paragraph. Yeah, I can go ahead and close that. And let's add a line of when our webinar date and time is, because that's important information for our readers. And then we can go ahead and add a greeting up at the top. All right, so here we want to do a merge tag so we can personalize it with the recipient's first name. So we've got the little merge tag brackets here. And now because we're using the data cloud individual, we have to use our data graph to get to the right information we want here. So we're going to go to select data graph attribute. And then if you click that, there should be related attributes that show up, or related objects. And then individual, and then first name. So what we're telling the system here is that we want the first name from the individual object, not the lead first name, not the contact first name. We want the individual because that's going to be the best source of information. If we have something that has a list of items or multiple items, we can filter and sort. But we don't need that here. We'll just do next. And then we can enter our default text so it doesn't show a blank space for someone with no name. So we can do done, and that has entered our first name. And Heather, I'm going a little off script here, but one thing I did want to mention is, I know sometimes you have big marketing teams and not everyone knows your data structure, or they don't want to know your data graph path. They don't want to know all the details to get to a certain field. They just want the merge tag to drop in. So one thing you can do as a marketing admin is create what is called reusable expressions. So everything we did for the first name, you can create that, save it as a reusable expression, and then your users can just reuse that expression again and again. So Heather, if you can select the merge tag button again and scroll down, there should be expressions there. Yeah, click that. And I actually created a first name one. So Heather could also select that instead of going through the data graph. Just makes things a little bit easier on your end user. All right, so next thing we want to do to our email is drop in a heading, and we will use Agentforce to generate us a heading as well. So it is going to use our campaign brief, use the content it's already generated as a reference to create us a heading. And we'll have the same options here if we live demos. If you can, you'll have to X out of this and do the sparkles again. It did that to me yesterday, and then it worked on the second try, and I'm not sure why. But if it draws a heading for us this time, which it should. Oh no. Oh, that's sad. You can just X out of it. We'll just skip the heading. But you can revise it using the tone and the length and all of that. But let's put the final touches on this email and change out those images. So up on the top. Oh, I'm sorry, Heather. I think you were doing the right thing. We're supposed to do the brand next. So I did want to show you how the brand attaches to the email. So I don't have a brand selected here. You can set a default brand for your CMS. So all of the assets that you create would be auto-branded. But I like to show everyone how you can brand afterwards, because then you can see how the email can change. So we're going to apply the Sercante branding. And so it's changed my text, my font, my buttons, my links, all of that to the Sercante colors. And then the last thing we're going to do is change out those images. So everything is stored in my CMS. So if you click that down arrow, you can do replace. And then there is a folder for that campaign. If you just go to Elevate Your Campaigns webinar, and we have the logo and the banner in there. Now, one thing I want to point out on this file, so the alt text auto-populated over on the right, That is something that you can set on the file, and then it'll auto-populate in your emails. That way your marketers are not having to remember to do it each time. Also, you can set an image to be purely decorative. This is something you do when you upload it, because if someone's using a screen reader, you don't want it just reading out IMG or image for the ones that don't really need text. So you can designate those as purely decorative, and then screen readers know to skip over it, and it gives your users a better experience. So let's go ahead and change the header, and then we will save our email. So you can use that banner with title. All right. So same thing, it's got alt text, and we are good to go. So we can go ahead and save this, and then we can publish it as well. You do have to publish all your assets before they can be used. That way, it's just another check to make sure everything is ready to go. There's also built-in workflow and approval processes. We're not going to demo that today, but if you are a team that, someone builds an email and then it goes to another team to review and approve, that is built in, and you can do that pretty easily in this tool. All right, so let's go back to our campaign. Now, under the email, there are a couple options to further configure our email. And this is newer with the summer release. You can also do these options in the flow, but this configuration section is new. And I do like that you can do it directly here in the campaign. So if you click configure, we are going to turn on Einstein Send Time Optimization. So if you haven't used this before, Einstein Send Time Optimization, or I call it STO, chooses the best time, and if your window is big enough, date for someone to receive an email. So if I check my emails at 7 a.m. every morning, but Heather checks hers at 10 a.m. every morning, it would send us an email at a different time. So when you use Einstein Send Time Optimization, it does find the best time and date in the window you set for each individual recipient, or uses all of your recipients if someone doesn't have enough data. So here we've given it a 24-hour window to pick the best time, but you can go up to a week. Okay, so now we can select our sender. So you can just select me, and then our communication subscription. So this is an event email. We'll select events. Now, Growth in Advance does have an explicit opt-in model. So someone needs to be opted into your list and your channel to receive the email. So if I sent this to a list of everyone in my system, but only 10% of those people are opted into my email channel and my event subscription, only the people who are opted in will get that email. And then here we can also choose to track clicks or track opens, and we'll just leave that as is, and we can go ahead and save. All right, so the next thing we need to do is configure a segment. So configure who this email is going to go to. So up on the top, we can select segment. Now there's a couple options here. There are quick filters in the system. So that's things like leads created today, or I think there's one for like contacts who haven't engaged in the last 30 days, but essentially Salesforce tried to think through, what are common repeatable segments that marketers need, just to make it a little bit easier on us. If we had campaign members, say we were following up on an event that already happened, we can email them. We can use an existing segment, or today we're going to build a new segment. So we'll do go to segment builder. And we've got a couple options here. We want to use Einstein segment creation to help us build our segment. So go ahead and click that. And then for segment on, we need to select the unified individual. Anytime you're sending something with Growth in Advanced, it does have to use the unified individual. So do next. And Einstein will get to work. What it's doing is it took that target audience that was crafted in our campaign brief, it automatically pulled in that information, started looking at all of the available data in our system to see what would be the proposed segment. Now, this is an SDO org. We haven't fully fleshed out all of the fields, all the data, all of that. So typically we would see a little bit more fields than we have here. But we've got lead source because we did want to look for people who engaged with us from a marketing event recently. And then in here, we can do account population to get an overview on like how many people this would match. Don't click it because it takes a while. We can also go ahead and edit the rules here. But what I like to do is create the segment, and then I'll go in and edit my rules as needed. Now, one thing I do want to add to my segment is Einstein engagement frequency. But before we do that, let's go back to our slide deck. I just want to talk to you about what Einstein engagement frequency does. So this is one of the Einstein engagement models that helps you send the right message at the right time to the right audience. This is available with Marketing Cloud Advanced, and I kind of think of it like a Goldilocks tool. It is helping you send the right amount of messages to each individual prospect or lead or contact. I call everyone prospect because I've been using Pardot for years. But it will tell you if each audience member is saturated, undersaturated, on target. So what your aim here is to get everyone and keep everyone on target. So if they're undersaturated, you may want to send them more emails. If they're oversaturated or almost saturated, you want to kind of back off a little bit. So back in our segment, what we're going to do is we're going to exclude anyone who is saturated. So we can go to related attributes and our email engagement frequency and email engagement classification. So just drag that in. And then we want operator is not equal to, and then saturated. So we're telling the system exclude anyone who currently has the status of saturated. So now we can do done, and we have added to our segment. So up in the top, we can save and then navigate back to our campaign. So when you create a new segment, it doesn't auto attach it to your campaign. So we can select that segment and do an existing segment this time, and now attach it. And hopefully it'll be the first one. Yeah, that shows up. All right. So next thing we want to do is customize our flow. So with the summer release, you can edit more of the flow on this view. Heather, if you scroll down a little bit under the email, we do have these next steps here, so we can add additional steps in this view. I think you can do this as long as your flow is, and don't quote me on this, I think 10 components. Otherwise, you have to go into the flow and edit it that way. This is just making it easier to those who are newer to flow and may just want to do everything from the campaign view. But we are going to open our flow. I like to edit everything there because I feel like you get more control. So when our flow opens, it's just going to have a one email send, and that's fine for a lot of campaigns. Sometimes you just need to send out an email and that's it. But what I want to do today is check for engagement. And if users don't engage on the first email, we're going to do a little test and see if they would engage with the second email or an SMS better. So here we can see we've got our email send and then it ends. We're going to add a step to see if people engage. So if you can press the plus sign under our email, and we're going to put a wait for event step here. All right, so the next thing we got to pick is our event. We're going to do email link click. And then we have to label it. You can just do email click. And we got to tell it what email to monitor, because sometimes you may have like 5 emails before you do this. So we're going to select our email. And then on the link, we can select a specific link or do any link. We'll just do any link. And you don't want them to sit here forever, so we need to configure a timeout path. Now we're going to set this for 2 days. But I do want to show you how granular you can get here. I mean, you can do down to minutes. So you can really automate your processes or your nurtures exactly how you want to. But we're going to do 2 days, and then you can see how our flow changed. So if they do engage within those 2 days, they will go down the event occurs path. And just for the demo, we're going to assume they registered for the webinar. If they don't engage in those 2 days, they will go to the timeout path. And that is where we want to put our path experiment. So let's talk about path experiment a little bit. I initially always think of it as A/B testing, but it is A/B testing on steroids because you can test much more than one element. So you can test your content, your channel, your cadence, really anything you want. So right in this example, I have a path experiment with 2 paths, but you can have up to 10 paths. And then this whole little rectangle is one experiment, and you can have as many experiments in your flow as you would like. So you can really get super granular on what you want to test and the different paths you want your audience to go down. All right, so back to our flow. In the timeout, we want to add path experiment. All right, so we'll label that SMS versus email. Now, right now, path experiment only has a manual winner selection. So you will have to come back after your test is done, review the results, and pick a winner. Now, safe harbor, yet again, I have gotten a preview of some things that are coming to path experiment and some automatic winner selection options that they're working on. It's really cool. So I'm really excited about this feature. I believe those things may come out around Dreamforce. Again, safe harbor, I'm not on the product team. I just get to see cool stuff in advance sometimes. But I would definitely stay tuned for more news on this. But right now, we just have the manual selection. We can select the part of the portion of our audience that this test will run on, and then how long we want the test to run. So we want the duration to be 2 days. And one thing I always want marketers to keep in mind is, so our test is going to be 2 days. People who didn't engage already waited 2 days. So 80% of our audience is not going to get another touch point for 4 days, which is fine. But I just want to make sure, you keep that in mind. You add those 2 wait steps together to make sure your flow is doing exactly what you want. So if we scroll down a little bit, we can configure our paths. So we'll make our first path SMS and our second path email. So what we're trying to do here is, if someone didn't engage with our first email, we want to see, is it because they'd rather get an SMS message, or do they need a second email, or, maybe they're not going to engage with either and they just weren't going to engage. So in here, we can go back to our flow, and then before I get ahead of myself, let's go to our deck and talk about the SMS capabilities of Growth and Advanced. So long code and short code are both supported with Growth and Advanced. If you were like me and when you saw this, you go, I never knew there was 2 SMS codes. That's fine. You're not alone. Long code SMS is more effective for like one-off touches. Maybe you're sending people reminders about an event that they registered for, or a reminder or anything like that. A short code is more if you're sending out coupon codes to like a large audience. So you're going to send a lot of sends. So long code has a longer send time. Short code has a shorter send time. That's kind of how I remember the 2. They do have different costs and different provisioning times. There's also conversational SMS. So you can add that on top of SMS as well. And that allows you to transform conversations or transform one-way promotions into conversations. So someone can reply, and then you can have an agent or an actual person reply and have a conversation with that person instead of SMS just being a one-way channel. All right, now let's go back to our flow. So we can add an SMS message here. So we'll just click that and do send SMS message. And we we can just do send SMS. And then we'll select an existing SMS. I believe I have one I don't know why it's defaulting to this workspace, but we need to go to our Marketing Cloud growth workspace, content workspace for Marketing Cloud. No, you're right. And there should be an SMS in here called a really cool SMS, just if you go down. Yeah, really awesome. Sorry. Can't remember my own wording. Now, if you scroll down on the left panel, I want to point out, or that's the right panel, I want to point out some things here. We can select our sender code, so you can have multiple codes. We have to select our communication subscription. So again, people do have to be opted into your SMS channel and your SMS subscriptions to receive these notifications. We can also track clicks here. But the next two items on the bottom is really what I want to talk about. There's set messaging session window. So if you are using that conversational SMS and someone is in the middle of a conversation with someone, you don't want a marketing SMS to come up in the middle of the conversation and just be like, hello, I'm here. That would be a weird user experience. So you can suppress SMS messages from users who may be having an ongoing conversation right now. Also, SMS has blockout windows. So if it's a national holiday or your company is just not doing communications for like a weekend because maybe you're doing maintenance or something like that, you can set a blockout window on the back end. You don't have to do it in each engagement studio, or my Pardot user is coming out, not engagement studio program, every flow. You can set the blockout window on the back end. And then in here, you can set if this is going to respect the blockout window, because sometimes you have to send an operational SMS and you need that to go out right away. So now that we've talked about SMS, let's add our second email in here. We'll do send email message, and then this can just be email to, and we can just select the same email we had it before. It is that. Oh, yeah, that one works. All right. So in here, we have got the same configure options we showed under that email before. So Einstein send time optimization, select the sender, all of that. We can just go ahead and save this email. We're not really going to send it, so we don't have to configure too much. Or not save this email, I'm sorry, save the flow. And then we're not going to do this today, but I highly recommend debugging your flows. That is a way to test your flow to make sure it is running as expected and your wait steps aren't like, too long or anything. Nothing's broken. People won't get stalled or go down the wrong path. But we are going to go back to our campaign. Oh, yeah. Sorry. We got to set our schedule. Heather's keeping me on track here. So the one thing I didn't show you is setting our schedule for our flow. We can run this flow once, or we can do reoccurring. We can set it at a specific time or immediately. One thing I like to point out, if you are coming from the account engagement side. So with account engagement, we're used to like dynamic lists where if someone drops off the list, they drop out of the engagement studio program. Flow's a little bit different. If someone enters the flow, they don't exit the flow until they hit an end step. So if you are an account engagement user coming into this tool, keep that in mind, just so you create your flow as needed. So here we're going to send immediately after activation, and now we can save it and go back to our campaign. It's really working on that save. Well, I'll talk about what we'll see on the campaign once we get back there. So since in our flow, we added another email and we added an SMS send, that will show up on our content. And then we can see more steps of our flow there. So we've got all of our assets there. All right, well, let's go back to our slide deck. I believe we have, okay. So next steps, like if you want to use this tool, what do you do? So At Connections, Salesforce made an announcement that if you are a Marketing Cloud engagement user, you will get access to Growth and Advanced. At Connections, I believe they called this Marketing Cloud Plus, but I've seen it called Engagement Plus since then. I think Engagement Plus is what they're going with, but I just threw both in here to reduce confusion. All engagement orgs will get this around October, around Dreamforce, and more information is coming. You know, I did a connection session right after the keynote where they announced this, and I got a lot of panicked engagement users saying, is there AMP script? How am I going to move my journeys? What if I don't have Salesforce CRM? Like, and I understand that all of those questions are important, but for right now, all the details are being worked out. But I don't feel like there's any reason to panic because you are not being forced to migrate from engagement. Engagement is not going anywhere. You're not going to lose any functionality, anything like that. This is just the direction Salesforce is headed, a more holistic approach to everything. And you are getting the option to try out Growth and Advanced as well as engagement. You don't have to. I would recommend you do, but you don't have to move anything. You don't have to use the new tool. You are not going to lose your AMP script or anything like that. So please don't panic. Now, the requirements as I know them today, and this could change, is that Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced does need Salesforce CRM. And I believe you still have to have Enterprise Edition or higher. It does run on Data Cloud, so you have to be using Data Cloud, but you can get the free Data Cloud SKU or Salesforce Foundations, which comes with Data Cloud and some credits. And then you do have to buy credits to use Growth and Advance. So Salesforce is putting this like they're giving you a car, but you got to buy gas. So you get all of the functionality of Growth and Advance, but if you want to send emails, you need email credits. If you want to pull segments, you need segment credits. So before you fully use the platform, you do have to look into credits. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the same. Oh, okay. I thought I didn't put it in there for a second. Same path for account engagement users. If you are an account engagement user and you have a current edition, so you can't have one of the legacy editions that went away about like 5 or 6 years ago, you also have the same path to use Growth and Advance. This was launched last October. You may have gotten a banner. This is Account Engagement for Marketing Cloud. That name threw some people off, so I am finding some people don't know that meant Growth and Advanced. But you can enable Growth and Advanced. You would have gotten permission set licenses last October and start testing the platform, dipping your toes in, seeing how it works, all of that. All right, so I see that there's some questions. We will get to questions. I just want to show you some resources first. So if you are an engagement user or you're an account engagement user who just hasn't used that convergence path to Growth and Advanced yet, we are going to do a webinar in September on it. By September, we should know a little bit more for you engagement users, but feel free to join us and we will hopefully answer every question you can have. And then I think on the next slide, we've got our Marketing Cloud Growth and Advanced Bootcamp. So if you're trying to learn this platform, we do have a training course to teach you how to implement it and everything you may need to know. And I think there's a couple more resources. So we've got our AI strategy roadmap coming up, and I think there is one more. Oh, and if you are also getting started with AI, we have an AI starter kit to help guide that journey. All right, I have talked for a very long time, so let's get into some questions. Okay, first question, how does it work if you have several separate business units? So right now, business units are not supported, but safe harbor again, but I have heard lots and lots and lots of buzz that they will be out at Dreamforce. So we shall see. I'm very excited to see how business units would work in this, but stay tuned. All right, question from Marco, requirements for opt-in. does this mean that it cannot be used for transactional emails? No, there are, I didn't show this, but on your email, you can set whether it's marketing or operational. And then on the back end, you set your consent settings. You set whether or not consent needs to be checked for marketing and or operational emails. So on the back end, we just have consent check turned on for marketing, not for operational. And if we designate an email operational, it will still go out. It doesn't need consent for that. All right. Is there an additional cost to use Agentforce to create campaigns? I've heard rumors that pricing is around $2 per conversation. Does that apply for use within next gen marketing? Heather, do you want to answer this one? Because you are more of our Agentforce guru.
So I mean, pricing is not specifically within our realm to really get deep on, but there are, for Agentforce specifically, there are different options. So there is a $2 per conversation option for based on, understanding what your consumption might look like. There's also something called flex credits, which focuses more on the action rather than the overall conversation. So, and those are done like on a, I'm not even sure. I want to say 10 cents an action, but I could be wrong on that. So this is a conversation like when you're trying to calculate your ROI and your consumption rates, where you want to have a conversation with your AE in order to just get a better understanding of what your costs are going to look like. So there are consumption, just in general, there is consumption costs both in Einstein requests and when you're accessing Data Cloud for your unified profile. In terms of data services credits, I guess is the short answer.
Yeah. And the flex credits, that's a newer thing that just came out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That came out, I want to say in May. I could be wrong, but it was just within the last couple of months.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Really good question from Lindsay. It seems like a lot of development is focused on growth and advanced. If we do not start using it, are we going to be left behind? And the answer is no. The product team has assured us that the account engagement and engagement still have their own roadmaps. They still have their own product teams and development teams, so they will continue to get updates. Next gen marketing is a direction that Salesforce is going, but they are never going to, well, I can't say never, but they are not going to kill tools that people are still using, people still love. So I do not see account engagement or engagement going anywhere in the foreseeable future. All right. And then does growth in advanced require Data Cloud to connect to engagement, account engagement, or to work? Yes. So because growth in advanced uses the unified individual, it does require Data Cloud. Now, I know even myself, like I hear Data Cloud and I think it's this big, massive tool that takes a massive implementation that costs all of this money. And then I started using Data Cloud and I realized you don't have to do that. I mean, some people use Data Cloud for literally everything and they are ingesting information from so many places and all of it's ingested and harmonized and unified, but you can just connect it to your CRM if you want. You don't have to have like this giant costly implementation. You can just start using it with your CRM, start using it with Growth Advanced. If you want to grow from there, you definitely can. There's a lot of options, but you can just use it with your CRM if you want. All right, I think that was all our Q&A questions. Christina, any other questions maybe you saw in chat or anything else we should talk through?
Yeah, Dee asked about super messages. Dee, if you're able to provide maybe like a little bit more context, or Erin, if you're all set to answer that, that's fine. And then Victoria asked about sandboxes.
Okay. Yeah, so super messages, I have never used super messages, but I did see that question asked a lot when Growth in Advance, first came out. There are no super messages credits. You just need SMS credits. And there is a multiplier depending on like if you're sending a short code SMS or a long code SMS and what country, I believe either that you're in or you're sending to. But it's just all SMS credits, no super messages to worry about. And then sandboxes are coming. They're not here yet. I think that is another expected around Dreamforce feature, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I know it's coming because I have heard the product team talk about a lot of clients have been asking for sandboxes.
And then, Erin, that was all the questions that we had thus far. Anyone else, if you have any further questions, go ahead and throw it in the Q&A and we'll get to them. But just to kind of recap for everyone on the call here, because this question has been asked a few times now, and I love the way you describe it. It just makes it feel like a little less overwhelming. So again, for the teams who have account engagement, and they're looking to just start dipping their toe in the water with marketing, with Next Gen Marketing Cloud, how would you recommend they get started before just like doing all the things?
Yeah. So I've had some clients be like, we're migrating to Growth in Advanced. And like, I wouldn't just pick up all of your stuff and try to migrate it into this new system without trying out the system. Definitely, you get it alongside your current system. So dip your toes in, see how the functionality is, and brainstorm on how you would adjust or change your current processes and use, the expanded features of Growth in Advanced. So the best example I can think of is like taking an established process that tried and true, like, maybe you send a newsletter every month and you really know the process and you really have it fleshed out. Take that process and build it in Growth in Advanced as it is now, but explore the options to change it, make it different, maybe accomplish some of the wish list items you had for it, and just see how the functionality is different. And then that gets your footing in the tool, and you'll get more familiarity with it. You'll learn a bit, and then you can start thinking about your other processes and which ones you would maybe want to use Growth in Advanced for. I've also seen some clients that have account engagement, love account engagement, but they want SMS capabilities. I tried to make that one sound. SMS capabilities. So because Growth in Advanced has native SMS channels and also has a native WhatsApp channel, you could do your SMS messaging out of that tool while keeping everything else out in account engagement.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At this time, I don't see any more questions from anyone. Erin and Heather, thank you so much both for your time today. Thank you everyone who joined live and all of you who will watch the recording. We greatly appreciate you. Yes, again, the recording will be sent out to you all afterward along with the slide deck. We'll also be including the links to all of the resources that were mentioned on this presentation as well. So be sure to keep an eye out for those. But again, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you again, Heather and Erin, for your time, for sharing all your insights on Next Gen Marketing Cloud with us. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.